BookTube, my name is Sarah and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reads video for January 27th, 2018. In this video I'm going to talk about all the books that I finished this week along with the books that I am currently reading. So to start off with, what is in my mug as per usual, in my awesome large Peeps mug that I got a couple years ago. This is the white cranberry bark tea from David's Tea. It was one of their holiday teas for this year. It's really good. It's a herbal tea and it's cranberries and other like apple and stuff like that. It is really, really yummy. It's a nice herbal tea, so no caffeine, and I really, really enjoy it. I'll definitely have to be getting some more this Christmas. Let's not talk about this Christmas yet. It's still 11 months away. All right, so let's jump into the books that I finished reading this week. So the very first book was Discovering Pride by Jill Sanders. This was narrated on audio by Tanya Eby. This is book number 2 in the Pride series. I give this book 3 stars, and it has an average rating on Goodreads of 4.09 stars. I got 2 challenges completed out of this one. The Triple RC challenge for January, monthly challenge number 5, which was Cuddle Up Day, which was to read a book where on the cover 2 of the characters are hugging or touching or something like that. And obviously this passes that. And the second one is for the Where Are You Reading challenge, and this was for the state of Oregon. So yeah, that's a fun challenge. I like that one. I like the idea of trying to read a book from every single state. I just think that's really fun. So my thoughts on this book. I gave this book 3 stars. Originally when I had finished it, I had given it 3.5 stars, but I did drop the star rating down now that I've had time to process the book a little bit. So what this book is about, it's about a woman named Lacey, and I want to say she's on the young side. She's 24, and you know, she still lives at home, and she's kind of always been looked after by her older brothers. Her older brother Todd was the lead male in the first book, which I cannot remember the name of right now, but he was the lead character in the first book. And you know, she's been kind of sheltered, if you will, and stuff like that. And then she literally runs into, while skinny dipping in her pond out back of her house, the Newtown doctor named Aaron. He has taken over the practice from his grandfather. And, you know, the two of them kind of keep running into each other, and then a relationship starts. And there's this whole backstory with Aaron, with his ex-girlfriend, that his parents want him to marry this certain woman, and things like that. They are very well-to-do and think very highly of themselves, and they're trying to run his life. You know, he's a doctor. They wanted him to practice, you know, back east in Boston or New York, and he chose to practice in Los Angeles, and then moved to take over his grandfather's practice when he retired, that kind of thing. It was a good story. I really, the reason I gave it 3.5 stars originally is because I enjoyed it. When I finished listening to it, you know, I kind of went to go do my review, and I'm like, yeah, I really enjoyed that story. It was a good story. And then the more I started thinking about it, and especially when I sat down this morning to kind of put all my notes together to sit down and do this video, I couldn't remember what it was about. It wasn't a very memorable story. As good as it was, as well written as it wasn't highly memorable. And again, that doesn't mean I didn't like it less. That's the reason, though, why I did drop it a 0.5 star rating, but not every story has to be memorable. Do you know what I mean? Stories can just be enjoyable, and you can just enjoy them for what they are and then move on to the next book. The one thing I have to say, though, at the very end of this story with the ex-girlfriend Jennifer, there were some very tense moments. And, you know, driving home, because I had about half an hour left in the audiobook, and I'm driving home from work, and I wanted to get it finished that night, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, oh wow, this very tense moment happens where the ex-girlfriend comes to Lacey, and, you know, stuff happens, and I'm like, oh my, you know, and it got very, very tense. And then it ended, and I thought, okay, that's the end of the story. But no, there was still like a half an hour left. Well, then this other thing happens with the ex-girlfriend and Lacey. And I'm like, okay, you know, it just felt like it kept going around in circles. Like it happened, these like bad things, 3 bad things really happened at the very end. And I felt like it was a little overdone. It's almost like the author was just trying to hit a page count and like, let's put some more plot, let's put some more excitement into this book by, you know, continuing on, you know. It just seemed odd, you know what I mean? I'll tell you guys, like, not to spoil anything, but at one point she actually hits Lacey with her car. Everybody knows who did it, but yet nobody's going after her to catch her, and then she comes back again. It's like, really? It just seemed really, really far-fetched. I mean, if you know who did it, Why aren't you arresting her? Why aren't you going to find her? They knew she was in this motel. I don't know. It just seemed very, very weird to me. All that being said, I did enjoy this story. It was a really fun, interesting read. It's not very long on audio. I think it only comes in at about 5.5 hours. So it's a relatively quick read. And yeah, I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it, and I will be definitely continuing on with the series. The next book that I finished was Happy New Year, Baby Fortune by Leanne Banks. This is book number 1 in the Fortunes of Texas, Welcome to Horseback Hollow series. I give this book 3.5 stars, and it has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.66 stars. I got 2 challenges completed out of this one as well. Another for the January RRRC monthly challenge for challenge number 4, which was National Hangover Day, which was read a book where a party or a New Year's kind of party takes place. This book opens up at a New Year's Eve party. And the next one is for the By the Numbers quarterly challenge. I got 5 words completed out of this one. And sadly, again, speaking of stories not being terribly memorable, this was another one. Again, I enjoyed it while I was reading it. And I liked this one just a little bit more than I liked the other one. This one was the story of Stacy and Colton. And 6 months earlier, Stacy gave birth to her daughter, Piper. And, you know, this is her first big evening out to this New Year's Eve party, and she runs into Colton. Now, she's known Colton since they were kids. Their ranches, like, border each other, so they've been neighbors, and she's best friends with his younger sister, Rachel. And, you know, so they've known each other their whole lives. And, you know, I guess maybe they hadn't seen each other in town lately or anything like that. And Colton was actually best friends with Stacy's ex, Joe. Now, what happened with Stacy and Joe is that they were together for a long time, and I guess Colton pretty much sat him down and said, you know what, you really should marry the girl. So Joe engaged to her. Well, of course, then they start, you know, having a physical relationship, and she ends up getting pregnant. As soon as he hears that she's pregnant, Joe takes off. So she's been raising this baby all by herself. And Colton is afraid of kids and all these things, and, you know, it's their relationship. And, you know, it was a cute story. There were some really cute moments in this book. You know, I liked them. It was a good story. Leanne Banks is a really good author. But again, this wasn't a super memorable story. And, you know, I will continue on with the series again. I do like Leanne Banks. I cannot remember, though. I think most of the Fortunes of Texas series, they're kind of like written by different authors. So I don't know if the next books are written by the same author as well, but I'm still going to check them out anyway because I did enjoy it. And the one thing, though, because this is a Fortunes of Texas story, these are like a big overarching, like this series has been going on for probably close to 20 years. So there's been lots of mini-series within this big series. And you felt at the very beginning like you were jumping into a story. Like this was, this came off of another series. Do you know what I mean? And I really wish that on Goodreads they would tell you that, like, this is a continuation of this series, because it would be nice to know that. But it can still be read as it is. I felt a little lost at the beginning, like, should I know these characters or should I not know these characters? But it all worked itself out, and it's really not that big a deal. The other thing I wanted to mention that kind of drove me insane is one of the plots of this story is that Stacy's mother has just found out, I guess this is what happened in an earlier book, that she is actually one of the Fortune children. She was adopted when she was a baby, but they found her birth parents, and she's a Fortune. So that's fine. So she, as an adult woman, decided to take on the Fortune last name. So she's now, whatever the mother's name is, Fortune Jones. Jones is her married last name. All of her children did this as well. These are adult children. They decided to change their name because their mother, I just found it really, really weird. And the fact that throughout the story they kept referring to Stacy, the main character, as Stacy Fortune Jones. It's like, really? It just seemed a little overdone, like they were really trying to drive that point home of what it was. It just seemed odd to me, but I guess they needed a way to tie all these Fortunes of Texas stories together somehow. But anyway, it's a little thing, but it kind of irked on me every single time I read it. So yeah, there's that too. So the next book that I finished was actually my favorite book that I read this week, and that is Talk Dirty to Me by Dakota Cassidy. This was narrated on audio by Scarlett Chase. This is book number 1 in the Plum Orchard series. I read the prequel novella earlier this month. I gave this book 4 stars, and it has an average rating of 3.81 stars on Goodreads. I got 3 challenges completed out of this one. The By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge, I got 4 words for this one. What to read in 2018. This is the big, you know, kind of project I'm working through in 2018. And it was for task number 2, and you had to click on recommendations and read 3 books from 3 different lists. I did this for Wonderlust a couple weeks ago, so that was this one. And the 2018 Where Are You Reading Challenge, this was for the state of Georgia. This one takes place in Plum Orchard, Georgia, a made-up town. So the premise behind this story is, in the prequel novella, you meet Landon, and spoiler alert for the prequel, Landon ends up passing away at the very end. Now, he's a young man. I think he's under 30. No, he's under 40, because the main characters in this story are in their mid to late 30s, so they're around my age, which was kind of nice to read. And he passes away. Well, he had mega money. He probably invested in, you know, different .com sites and things like that, and he made a fortune. So what he does is he runs one of his businesses. He had several of them before he passed away, was this call girls business, and essentially they're sex phone operators, you know. And he would give women a chance who were in bad situations, and give them a job and give them a place to stay, and you know, this was a legit job. There was nothing illegal about what he was doing. There is nothing illegal about it. Stuff like that. One of the women who worked for him is a former, as she calls it, a companion. She was a prostitute. You know, women who have been down on their luck and things like that, and he's offering them a second chance. So in this story, Landon has now passed away, and he is leaving this business to his 2 very best friends, Dixie and Kane. So the 3 of them were like the 3 musketeers. And Kane and Dixie had a relationship. She used to be a mean girl. She was a very bad mean girl. She kind of, you know, if you've ever seen that movie, that's the epitome of who Dixie was. And, you know, she kind of tried to redeem herself in her 20s. And she came back to town, and she met back up with Kane again. And they developed a relationship, and then started dating, and then eventually got engaged. And Llewellyn, who was her biggest rival for Kane's affections, did something, or let a cat out of the bag, essentially, and Dixie and Kane ended up having a horrible breakup, and they haven't talked to each other since, in 10 years. So now Landon, from beyond the grave, essentially, is forcing them back together again to compete against each other to win this sex phone company. And it's a very lucrative company, so, you know, there are millions to be made if they win in this deal. Well, Dixie is broke. The restaurant that she had has gone belly up. She owes money to all of her investors. She has nothing, essentially, whereas Kane is doing extremely well selling prime real estate in Miami. So he doesn't really need a company, but he's there to kind of be with Dixie. And, you know, the story kind of goes from there, of the 2 of them competing. There are some great hysterically funny scenes in this book where Dixie's trying to learn how to be a sex phone operator. It's you know what, it sounds very racy, but it's really not. I mean, there are some very adult scenes in this book, so be warned if that's your thing or not. But you know, as for the whole business part of it, it's some of it's quite funny. It's you know, very tongue-in-cheek and stuff like that, and you know, it's just a lot of fun. It was a really great story. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did have issues with Kane throughout the beginning of the book. I didn't like him. I don't know what it was about him that I didn't like. It just, something rubbed me the wrong way. But he redeemed himself towards the end. And Dixie I adored. Even though she was the bad girl reformed, I still really liked her. The narration on this book was fantastic. Scarlett Chase did a brilliant job. Dixie was explained that she had a very Kathleen Turner voice, that very deep, sexy voice, and the narrator did it perfectly, or did a really great job of Dixie when she was on the phones. And Kane actually had, he did a wealth of impersonations, and the narrator did a pretty good job of not only narrating a male, but a male doing an impression. So, I mean, it was really interesting and really well done. And I love this series, I love this book, and I'm very much looking forward to finishing off. There's only 2 more books left, so it's only a trilogy with the novellas. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing this one off. And the last book that I finished this week was Kids on the Doorstep by Kimberly Van Meter. This is book number 1 in the Home in Emmett's Mill series. This is a Harlequin super romance novel. I gave this book 3.5 stars, and has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.82 stars. I got 3 challenges completed out of this one. The first one was for the Harlequin Romance Theme Reading Club for January, which was read a cozy book. The cover of this book may look really cozy. The plot line, not so much, but I'll get into that in a minute. This was also for the By the Numbers Quarterly Challenge for 4 words. And the 2018 Where Are You Reading, I got the state of California for this one. This one takes place in Northern California. This was a very difficult story. And I mean that in the topics that are discussed. So the premise of this story is there's a man by the name of Joe. I think his name is Joe. And or Joey or something like that. And in the middle of the night, he drops off his 3 daughters on his aunt's front step. Now, his aunt's an elderly woman. She just had a triple bypass operation. She can't handle 3 rambunctious girls. The oldest is 7, and then I think 5, and 2 or 3 is the baby. And she immediately goes next door to her neighbor John's house and is like, I need help. You know, he's a man in his early 30s, and he runs a ranch, and he his job is he takes horses that have been abused, and he tries to reintegrate them back into being with other horses and being able to handle people and things like that. So, you know, he kind of takes these girls, and between the 2 of them, they start, like, you know, petitioning for custody because the dad's just taken off. They have no idea where he is. He's a bad seed. The aunt does not care for him very much at all. And then the mother shows back up, and the mother's name is Renee. And she assumes she's just going to walk in the door and take the girls back. Well, about 6 or 8 months earlier, she walked out on the family. And because she's an alcoholic. And she went to go get help, but her daughters think that she abandoned them to the hands of their father, who essentially abused them. There's a lot of hot button issues in this story. There's alcohol and drug abuse. Along with that is child neglect and child abuse. It was a very difficult story in that aspect, but very, very well written. It tugged at your heartstrings big time. You know, at the beginning, you don't want to like Renee. She abandoned her family. I mean, I understand why she did it, because she was trying to get help for this problem that she had. But in the eyes of her young daughters, she left, and they're hurting, and it's going to take a long, long time. And I'm glad that this story didn't get fixed right away. I mean, this spanned over, I think, a few months that it took for everything to kind of start to work itself out towards the end. The relationship or the romance part of this was almost second nature, to the point that I think they could have taken it completely out of the book and it wouldn't have changed the story. The romance was kind of, I felt, almost shoved in towards the end between Renee and John. You know, and it was, I did believe it. It was believable, but I just don't think it was needed. Like but then again, it's a Harlequin super romance novel. You kind of had to have it in there. That's the whole point of these stories, that they're supposed to be romance novels. But these bigger hot button issues seem to have overtaken everything else, which, as they should have been. They should have been the focal point of the book, and I'm glad that they were. Again, I really enjoyed it, but the romance part of it, considering this was a romance novel, and, you know, if I'm rating it on that, specifically, that's why it got a 3.5 star instead of like a 4 star. But still, if you think you can handle those kind of issues and things like that, you know, it was a good book, and I really did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. Anyway, guys, so what am I currently reading? My current audiobook is The Forgotten by Heather Graham. This is book number 16 in the Crew of Hunters series, and this is being narrated on audio by Phil Giante. I've literally just started this. I'm not even an hour into it yet. I didn't get a lot of listening time yesterday, just on my way to and from work. I took my lunch at a different time because I actually decided to come into work early, quote unquote. I usually work at 10 till 6:30, but I decided to come in at 8:30 so I could leave at 5, because, you know, Garrett and I were going out last night. So I took an earlier lunch, which means I was in the lunchroom with other people. Usually I'm in the lunchroom, like, by myself, which I'm absolutely happy with. I spend all day long on the phone. I do customer service for a living. So believe me, that hour in the middle of the day for me to completely detox and knit and listen to my audiobook makes me unbelievably happy. But it was nice sitting with other people yesterday and having my lunch. But I didn't want to be rude and, like, shove my headphones in and be like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not talking to you today. So yeah, this one takes place in Miami, and it's about, you know, drug running and things like that. Like I said, I'm only an hour into it, but so far it's pretty good. The lead female in this story is, she was a secondary character in the last book, without giving too much away on that one. But she is a carryover from the last book, which is kind of fun. And my current ebook is The Chocolate Cure by Roxanne Snopek. This is book number 4 in the Love at the Chocolate Shop series. I'm maybe 5 pages into this one. I just started this one this morning when I was having my breakfast. And so far I'm really liking the writing. It starts right off on New Year's Eve, and you know, the main character Maddie is having like a great time, and then the next scene is she wakes up in bed with a horrible hangover, and that's as far as I am now. But the basis of this story, from what I've read on the back of the book, is that she is a realtor and she's in danger of losing her job, and there's a man that was in a horrible accident and he's looking to sell, I guess, his house or something like that, and she's being tasked with trying to get him to sell because it'll be a great commission for her and allow her to help her keep her job. But of course she falls in love with him, so that's the premise for that story. So I am looking forward to it. I am really enjoying this series. I almost want to buy them all on physical book format because the covers are just so stinking adorable and I absolutely love them. So last thing before I let you guys go, what am I knitting this weekend? I am finishing off a sock. That is my goal for this weekend, is to finish this sock, because I've been knitting on it for months. And this is my Toil and Trouble sock, as I'm calling it, or socks. There is more than one. I have the first one finished right here. And this is the Toil and Trouble yarn by Fiber Stash. And the pattern was designed by my friend Brandy. It's called the Running Through Socks. So I've already got the heel in. I've got maybe 4 more inches until I'm done the leg. And then I shall be done this sock, and I can get another pair of socks on the needles, because you can never have too many pairs of socks. I think I have, somebody asked me, I have close to 30 pairs of knitted socks, and I wear a pair every day. Essentially, I could wear a pair every day for a month and not have to double up. You know, like wear 2 pairs more than once, or wear a pair more than once, excuse me. But I just love knitting socks. It's so mindless and so enjoyable. So yeah, and living, of course, I've shown you guys this before, but I have to show it every time. My Knitting Witches knitting bag. You see, they're knitting. I love this fabric on this bag. It's too adorable. Anyway, guys, that is it for me. Oh, I just dropped my yarn on the floor. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments below if you're reading anything good this week, or if you just recently finished anything good. There are some great videos coming up this week, in my opinion, on the channel. My February TBR, I'm going to be filming all these next, but my February TBR is coming up early in the week. And then I have a very, very exciting announcement that I am making on Thursday. There'll be a video posted on Thursday. Me and my very good friend Sissy of the book, The Romance Queen of BookTube, she approached me back like before Christmas. She wanted to do a read-along together. So we are definitely going to be doing a read-along, and it's going to be a romance readers readathon. So stay tuned for that announcement coming on Thursday. And we also have an original book tag that we are doing together, which will be coming on Friday. So stay tuned this week for both of those. And anyway, guys, until my next video, take care and happy reading. Bye, guys.